It's not a half. There's like 20 games left. And what's going on? Nothing's going on. Nothing. Oh, what's this? Lakers have to trade LeBron? Donovan Mitchell? Damian Lillard? Zion Williamson? Maybe the next to ask off the teams? We're going to talk about that Lakers trade LeBron column, which was written by Bill Plaschke.
Number one columnist in the country.
Let's go.
The man, the myth, the legend.
That's not good.
He makes the show.
He guarantees
the show. Big money Plaschke, baby.
Did he guarantee it? Over.
Before we get to our bill, let's start with the Western Conference, the Western District. Chris Paul out the next 6 to 8 weeks. Phoenix 6.5 clear for the 1 seed. Then it's Golden State, Memphis, Utah. Some might note Dallas is creeping into that home court in the first round situation. Tim Kalish, I'll start with you then. What does Paul's injury do to the landscape? How do you see the West playing out in the not really second half?
Well, I mean, the Suns really rode an unlikely wave of Chris Paul health for the first 4 months of the season. That's why they've opened up the lead in the West that they have. I think they'll be able to maintain it. I don't see Golden State catching them. They might get close, but Phoenix has got a lot of talent. We saw it all in the finals last year. I think the interesting things are, does Memphis kind of hold its position at 3? And as you mentioned, the Dallas Mavericks, who've been hot, and maybe even hotter now that they don't have this Porzingis question anymore. They've been playing pretty well without him. Do they catch Utah? Do they get a first-round bye? Dallas hasn't won a playoff series since they beat the Heat in 2011. It's been a while. They're a little overdue. Can they get into the top? But I think Phoenix barely holds off Golden State for the top spot.
George Sedano.
Tony, I think that Phoenix holds off, right? Like, I think they hold off Golden State. I think they can go 500. If they go 500, they'll be a 60-win team. They should secure the 1 seed in the Western Conference. Although it's not going to be easy. They do have the experience of last year. They're way better last year, even besides Chris Paul. But for Devin Booker specifically, this is going to be really tough. His shot quality goes down tremendously when Chris Paul is not on the floor. I'll give you this stat. When he's on the floor without Chris Paul, 97% of his shots are contested. That is not the case at all with Chris Paul. It goes down to about a quarter when he's on the floor. So I think that they're going to have some struggles, but if Chris is healthy, which I think he will be for the playoffs, they'll still be fine moving forward.
Frank Solo, you've never passed up a contested or uncontested shot before, please.
Yeah, Devin Booker's got a lot of that Kobe Bryant in him where he likes taking those contested jumpers, and he usually makes them. They do everything well. They defend. Offensively, they're terrific. Their bench is good. They move the ball. They cut. They do everything. They're not going to get caught. And for me, the biggest thing with the Warriors is we don't know about Draymond Green. Right now, Draymond Green has been out of the lineup for a long time with that back injury. Who knows what he's going to be like when he gets back? And if you look, Steph Curry's been tremendous, but since Draymond Green's been out, he's been a different player. The one team that I would mention, and it's the team with a D, and it's not Dallas, Tim, sorry, it's the Denver Nuggets. Nikola Jokic is playing like an MVP, and they're eventually going to get Jamal Murray back. They were in the conference finals 2 years ago. That's the team that I would look out for.
Playing like an MVP. He is the reigning MVP. I don't understand how everybody wants to sleep on the reigning MVP, Nikola Jokic. Justin Tinsley.
I'm going to mention Memphis. I'm really interested to see how they close this season out. We've seen how this team has evolved over the years. They missed the playing game. They went in the play-in, then lose to Utah in the first round. This team is right here, man. They've had the #1 offense in the league in February. They've got the 3rd easiest schedule left, whereas Golden State has the 7th hardest. So they could potentially flip. And this is a team that's built from top to bottom. Of course, Ja Morant has been the most exciting player in the NBA this year. A healthy Jaren Jackson Jr. has been critical. They get Dylan Brooks back soon. Desmond Bane is a hooper. And then you still have Kyle Anderson and Steven Adams. This is a team that's built for a run. And now all they got to do is do it.
It's not just a run, though. It's a sprint, right? I like to make jokes about how the second half isn't a half, but Memphis has already played 60 games. You know, they may be able to catch Phoenix if it was 40 remaining, but not if it's 20 remaining. Kalish, I'll bring you in after the Horde.
Luka has been making a little run back into the MVP discussion, but I hate to say Frank's right about Nikola Jokic. His numbers are better than they were a year ago.
And last words to Donna.
Playing like an MVP.
Tony, I would add to another sleeper team. If Paul George comes back, which they expect him to be back in mid-March, and Norman Powell could be back in mid-March, And who knows if Kawhi comes back. If that team comes out of the play-in, if you're Phoenix, you better hope Chris Paul is healthy. Or if you're Golden State, you better hope that Draymond is healthy.
6 to 8 weeks.
Don't sleep on the Clippers just yet.
The timeline on Chris Paul, and that times out right with the start of the playoffs.
Right.
We'll move on. Now, Bill Plaschke. Our Bill Plaschke. Lakers must trade LeBron. That's how you write a headline. It's their best path forward, he says. He says he knows it sounds crazy, and he knows it sounds absurd, but at this point in his career, there really is only one way LeBron James can help the Lakers win a championship, and that's by being traded. If only he had written this before the trade deadline. George Sedano, do you agree with Plaschke? And even this question, what would a LeBron trade look like?
Tony, let's start with this. You've always said you never go full Plaschke. And he went ultimate full Plaschke in this one, okay? Now, look, what would a LeBron trade look like? Well, first of all, you'd have to get LeBron to agree to a trade because he has a no-trade clause. So that's part of the equation that Plaschke did not factor into his particular column. I also don't see LeBron doing that. But if we're going to entertain this, there's probably only two places LeBron would be willing to go. The two other places he's played, which are Cleveland and Miami. And if you're the Lakers, you're going to want Darius Garland and Evan Mobley. And why would you want to go there if you were LeBron if those two guys aren't there? Maybe you could cobble something together with Miami because they've got a lot of veteran-type guys. And maybe Pat Riley would be willing to do something like that. But I just don't see any of this materializing.
Frank Isola.
Yeah, and maybe the guy to trade would be Anthony Davis, well, because he's always hurt to begin with. The premise, to me, makes a lot of sense because remember now, you already won a title with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Try to get some assets for him because they're probably going to finish in the play-in tournament. They could get knocked out early on. But to George's point, when we talk about player empowerment, the king of player empowerment is LeBron James. The only way that you're making this deal is if he agrees to it and he has to know exactly where he's going. Then you factor in what you can get in return. It's so difficult to pull off. I don't see it happening.
Frank, I think you're alluding to a column in Sports Illustrated. Howard Beck wrote this week about player empowerment has led to just chaos in the league. And he spoke about Mitchell or maybe Lillard or maybe Zion being the next disenchanted star to ask for a trade. But Justin, could you see LeBron being a star who allows a trade?
To be fair, Bill isn't the only one saying this, and I get it in theory, but it's never going to happen. In Bill's column, he mentions how Miami and Cleveland, after LeBron left, it took them a few seasons to get back on track. Here's the thing about LeBron. You can say a lot of things about him, but he's always played his contract out. He's always played every contract he's ever had. He's going to dictate the terms of his exit. He's not waiving that no trade clause because to get LeBron, you're going to have to gut your team. And LeBron will never agree to go to a gutted team, especially heading into his 20th season.
And Tim Kalishaw.
That headline you showed, it said, it sounds crazy. If Plaschke had stopped right there, I think he would have been fine. But he had space to fill, and we all know that feeling, so he had to keep going with it. I don't think it makes a lot of sense. I think the best thing is to play it out, try to get a little better players around him, although I still don't know why we exonerate LeBron on the Westbrook thing like that's somebody else's fault. But as long as we're talking crazy and trades, he always picks Luka when he picks his all-star team, and his favorite team is the Dallas Cowboys. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just saying, not a bad place to finish your career.
But they just traded Porzingis because LeBron for Porzingis would have been a 1-for-1 and everything.
Right.
He can fill KP's shoes.
Frank Isola, the third panelist, to say trade Anthony Davis. Sarah Spain said it last week, but Woody Page was the one who got it first. How do you feel about that? That Woody Page was the one who said that first.
And George had whispered it in my ear as well. That's the one that makes sense. The guy is always hurt. He's a terrific player, but he's always hurt.
One more story here. Grambling State hiring Art Briles as offensive coordinator. Let's talk about that. Hugh Jackson is the new head coach at Grambling. He was hired just 2 months ago. Whether you view this as a story about a second chance or as a misstep from a university, the details of Briles' last job in college, Baylor, victims alleging that from 2011 to 2014, at least 31 football players committed at least 52 rapes. The scandal and investigation leading to Briles losing his job, as well as the university president at Baylor. A Briles hiring for Hamilton in the CFL 5 years ago, and Southern Miss in the NCAA 3 years ago was close to happen reportedly, but then pulled back because of backlash Justin Tinsley, how do you consider this?
You see my sweatshirt. Like, I'm always going to love HBCU culture and HBCU football, and I love the notoriety that's been getting recently. But you can't allow this to happen. Tony, you just said 31 players, 52 rapes. I'm not a judge, jury, and executioner on second chances, but you can't give a guy like this a second chance. I understand he's an offensive guru in a sense, and he's a great coach. And I understand he won't be a head coach in this position, but you cannot allow this type of coach in your program. We're talking about Grambling. Eddie Robinson, one of the stand-up men in all of sports, coached this program, and this is who you bring in. I would have rather seen a young coach get an opportunity for this before this guy. You can't explain this away.
Tim Calishaw, you spent some time covering Bryles when he was at Baylor, of course, last decade.
Yeah, and I'd say this first. I'm not comfortable calling the people at Grambling idiots for doing it. They've obviously thought about this, and I do think it makes a difference. Something Justin just said, he's not the head coach. He's not the guy who, if something happens, needs to be accountable, which Art was not at Baylor. Now, there have been a lot of things come out over the last few years. They certainly don't exonerate him. The NCAA did a thing where they didn't have a show cause penalty against him. That doesn't mean he wasn't at fault at all, but I do think it makes a difference when he's not a head coach. If he was a head coach on a college campus, I would think that's insane.
George Dano.
Tony, when the NCAA had their review of this situation, they used a quote that said he failed to meet the basic expectations on how someone should react in this particular instance. That resonated with me in a big way. And in 2019, when he was somehow coaching a high school team or being part of a coaching staff on a high school team, he was asked if he felt any of the criticism, and he kind of dismissed it like, hey, I'm just a football coach. That's what I focus on, which shows to me that he really hasn't learned anything. Like, I don't believe he should be on a college campus regardless of the position. Now, maybe in the professional ranks, okay, I mean, whatever. I still wouldn't hire him anyway there, but I could at least understand that slightly more than on a college campus.
Frank Isola.
And to George's point, my thing would be more troubling that he was coaching in high school. Now, as an offensive coordinator at a college, it's a little bit different position. Clearly, the president, the athletic director, and the head coach, Hugh Jackson, the former NFL head coach, they all signed off on it. I don't think the story is over yet, because now you'll have some student groups on campus. They might weigh in. And you mentioned before where he nearly had a college job, and that was taken away. So I don't think the story's really over at this point right now.
Thanks for your thoughts on that. George Dano in the lead. Buy or sell is next. And yes, now we see Justin Tinsley, that sweatshirt.
There it is.
Hampton. The
real
what do you call it?
HU.
The real HU? You said it. I didn't say it.
Look, I'll say it 1,000 times. The real HU,
All right,
baby.
we have a couple Howard people working around us. Let's see how they respond. Back in 2 minutes.
Jimmy Garoppolo is unquestionably one of the most popular and respected players in our locker room. Trey Lance was probably further behind than people realized. Trey Lance is greener than people realized. Trey Lance is going to need more work than people realized, and they have a roster that can win now.
Adam Schefter on R.A. Mayrov's show. Garoppolo already said his goodbye. I remind you, quote, it's been a hell of a ride. See ya, end quote. George, buy or sell the 49ers holding on to Garoppolo because Trey Lance may not be ready.
I'm buying it, Tony. Absolutely. Why wouldn't they? The guy went to a Super Bowl and got them to an NFC Championship game, and Trey Lance played 17 college games in a lower division. What happened to the days of, like, a guy who also played in the lower division of Steve McNair, sitting 3 years behind a guy like Chris Chandler until he was ready to become a Hall of Fame caliber talent? We can wait a little bit for Trey Lance, and the Niners can still win with Garoppolo.
Tim Calishaw.
I'm going to buy it too, and I'm going to donate 2 points to former Around the Horn panelist Adam Schefter, because he also made the point that after this year, they can get a third-round pick as a compensatory pick just by losing him. How much more are they going to get right now than that? And if it's not much, then make another run with him.
I don't think you're in the position to be donating points right now, Tim. You need something to catch up to
Not
Sedano.
of these, to a Frank's.
Tinsley.
Yeah, that's now one thing. It's on San Francisco to develop Trey Lance. They drafted him. But honestly, unless you get a big dog like Aaron Rodgers, why not run it back with Jimmy Garoppolo? He's won almost interception away from going to 2 Super Bowls in 3 years. And as Adam Schefter says, the team loves him. Why not kick the tires and go one more time? Your window's there.
Okay, so I get everyone agrees with this, Frank. Do you? And it's not even that it's a referendum on Garoppolo the player, but you remember Garoppolo being at a podium saying, "Yeah, I know it's over for me here. It's been a hell of a ride. See you later." I mean, do they have to do some fence mending with Garoppolo?
Yeah, let me lean in like Adam Schefter. He's still probably the best option. That's probably why they still want him number one. Kyle Shanahan is a pretty smart guy. And remember this, too, about the 49ers. You look back over their history. They waited for Steve Young. They waited for Colin Kaepernick. They could wait for Trey Lance. Now I'm back.
All right. Buy or sell, too. Draymond Green saying he thinks his Game 5 suspension in the 16 finals kept him off the NBA 75 list. Frank Isola, true or false?
You know what? I think he's right. I think the way that the voters voted this year and, thinking about things in the moment, that would have given him another championship, an MVP. The fact that they kept Klay Thompson off the list, I can't believe that. The fact that they kept Dwight Howard off the list, I think he's right about this. I think he would have been voted on. Not so sure I would have done it, but I think this panel would have voted on.
You said he would have been the NBA Finals MVP?
Yeah. He got a triple-double in Game 7.
Justin Tinsley.
Look, I love Dwight, but I love Draymond, but I got to put him in the friend zone. It's Dwight Howard, man. He was an 8-time All-Star, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, and he's the reason we didn't get a Kobe and LeBron finals. I love Draymond. He'll be a Hall of Famer, but no, he shouldn't get over there, Dwight.
Tim Kalishaw on Green saying the suspension cost him top 75.
I think I don't want to say out of his mind. I don't think he's that close to being in the top 75. If he was, it would be because of his defense, right? Dikembe Mutombo, 4 times NBA Defensive Player of the Year, is not on that list. We've got some other players. Kawhi Leonard is not on that list. Vince Carter, there's some great players.
Is it possible this list looked away from the defense? Dennis Johnson, another name to throw out there.
Well, if it did, they're not going to put Draymond Green on it.
You don't think he's one of the greatest defenders in the history of the game, Tim?
No. If they're looking away from defense, why are they going to put Green on it? He's not a great offensive player.
And George Sedano.
I do think he would have been the MVP. I'm with Frank on that because he averaged 17, 10, 6, 1.7 steals and a block in that series. It was incredible on 49% shooting and 41 from 3. But he's not on the All-75 list yet. He will be in the 100. Klay and Dwight Howard specifically. People forget, we talked about Dwight versus LeBron.
Wait 25 years.
Okay?
We're going to wait 25 more years for that, George.
25 years of players
going to be
coming
one
up.
25.
I'll still be here. Tony will still be hosting.
I'll be here, not you, maybe.
I got to go through the list again. Kawhi is on the top 75 list, Tim. So,
Top 76.
Who?
Top 76.
Kawhi Leonard is in the 75. It's all right. We'll allow it.
76.
All right, Kalishaw and Tinsley. Frank Isola, George Sedano, top 75 around the horn panelists of all time. And we'll see who wins Showdown next.